Hello chess friends and welcome to your Zad of Chess channel and welcome to a spectacular game from the TCEC Season 26 bonus Fisher random match between the two top engines Stockfish and the Leela C0. So believe me or not, in a wild, spectacular, crazy Fisher random match of 44 rounds, the big fish, the big Stockfish engine got destroyed by Leela C0. After 44 rounds, Leela C0 had 24 points and Stockfish got only 20 points. Very wild stuff, really crazy performance by Leela. It was always a pure domination by Stockfish in any time format that we have seen in normal chess, but also in some other chess variants. It was always a pure domination by Stockfish, but now Leela C0 got its revenge and simply dominated over Stockfish in a crazy and spectacular Fisher random match. So I've sorted out really the most spectacular game from this event, in which we had this setup. Leela C0 played here with the white pieces, Stockfish played here with the black pieces. This was now the starting position. You see the position on the first rank is mixed up. The position is not like in the common chess. Let's see now what happened. In my opinion, as I said, this was simply the best game from this event. So with the white pieces in this position, Leela opened with the move e4. The fish response was c6, a sort of Qa5 defense, but of course it's not a Qa5 because we have now the beautiful chess 960. We have now d4 by Leela, d5 by the fish, f3 supporting the e4 pawn. If you get, of course, this pawn, then after f takes e4, here white will have this beautiful mobile pawn center and will control this four squares on the other side of the board. So that's why after f3 we have f6 by the fish, bishop to f2. Here Stockfish immediately creates a flank attack with h5. Leela c0 plays normal development and now blocks out the potential h3 move by Stockfish by playing h3 itself. So here we have knight to e6 by Stockfish, kingside castling, and now g5. You see really also the differences in I think in their playing style. Leela c0 plays the solid normal positional chess. Stockfish plays already very aggressively with an early flank attack, is trying to immediately do something here on the king side. We have now rook to e1 by Leela, placing the rook where already the king is. If something clears on the e file, then the king could be in danger. So that's why knight to f4 by Stockfish, getting this beautiful square for the knight and attacking also the bishop on e2. Leela is playing again normal development, knight to c3. The problem here for black is that you don't want to give up such a powerful knight on f4 for your opponent bad bishop on e2. The bishop is blocked out by its own pawns anyway here by this pawn structure, so that's why I think it would be very risky to give up your best piece simply against such a bad piece. So that's why Stockfish also continued with here normal e6. Now Leela c0 retreats, knight to d7, bishop to e3. Leela puts more pressure against this annoying knight on f4. We have bishop to d6, and now Leela continues to pressure against this knight. We have queen to c7, and now the fun starts. Now Leela c0 found really a crazy and spectacular idea in an early stage of the game. Leela plays knight to f4. Here we have bishop to f4 by Stockfish, and now Leela plays an amazing e5. Very crazy move. This move is actually giving up a pawn, but creates, I think, here an imbalanced position for the light square bishop. This light square bishop is almost neutralized. This light square bishop will not get back into the game. So Leela locked it with the potential e5 move because here Stockfish took, of course, f takes e5. Now we have bishop to f4, and if you play g takes f4, this wasn't played in the game, then we have this one, d takes e5. You cannot take, of course, because of queen to f4 would be very dangerous. So that's why for bishop to f4, here we have e takes f4. Okay, Stockfish is up a pawn, but Leela c0 simply neutralized the light square bishop. Look at this. This light square bishop doesn't have good squares. It simply paralyzed by its own pawn, and on this diagonal it's almost like it's not attacking anything. So Leela is also controlling the e5 square. It's very hard for black to advance the pawn on the e file because you still have your king here on this file. So very beautiful position idea here by Leela c0. We have now c4 by Leela, immediately breaking, which makes also queenside castling a little bit hard here for black, because then we could play something like, I don't know, c5, b4, b5. I think in this line, white would already have great attacking chances on this side of the board. So that's why Stockfish played king to f7. We have bishop to d3, king to g7. We have queen to c3. Again, placing the heavy artillery against the king. If something clears now on this diagonal, then again black's king could be in danger. We have bishop to f7, knight to f2, a5, rook to e2. We have king to h2, bringing the king, of course, on a better square. And now, good choice, I think, here by Stockfish. Stockfish wants to simplify the game by trading off the queens and then go into a favorable endgame with an extra pawn. But of course, Leela is not interested. Plays now queen to a3. Wants to sneak in with the queen here on the square e7, where also then the pawn on g5 could be endangered. We have rook from h to e8, very important move, not allowing, of course, queen to e7. And now rook from a to e1, placing again this rook on the e file, making this e5 move almost impossible here for black. If black somehow plays e5, maybe gets finally this light square bishop into the game, then black is pretty solid in the position. But here after rook from a to e1, now Leela C0 got challenged by Stockfish in this way, queen to b6, attacking now the weak pawn on d4. But Leela plays here really spectacular idea, plays now an amazing knight to g4. Simply gives up now the pawn on d4. Risky stuff. Stockfish didn't fall for this, but let's really see what happens if you play, for instance, queen to d4. Seems tempting. I think many of us even would take the pawn here on d4, but now actually after c takes d5, there are many tactical and positional problems here in black's position. For instance, if you try here e takes d5, then after rook to e8, rook takes e8, rook takes e8, bishop to e8, the queen is coming into the game. You have to cover. Now we have played this one, queen takes d7, and you could maybe win also the bishop on d3, but now after knight to e5, it's game over. You simply lose the piece. There's simply no good square to defend this bishop. This square is taken, this square is taken, so you cannot protect anymore the bishop on f7. The game is over. Even if you, instead of e takes d5, take with this other pawn, if you play c takes d5, then after bishop to b5, we get a beautiful attack against the knight. You have to now protect, maybe rook from e to d8, then we take, then we have again this square e7 for the queen. If you attack now the queen, then this one is hanging, or maybe even the pawn on g5 could be hanging. So if you try rook from a to d8 in order to control the e7 square for the queen, then this one is obviously winning. Bishop takes d7, rook to d7, and now rook to e5. Look at this again. We play this blockade against this potential advanced pawn on e5. This bishop is stuck anyway, and look at this. Even if you try king to g6, then this one is coming into the game. Very messed up position. The bishop is simply part of the pawn chain. The rooks are playing freely here. Always you have to worry something about g5. The queen could be very dangerous here. So maybe you can survive for a couple more moves, but I guarantee you this is not a pleasant position here for black, especially because of this beautiful rook on e5. So that's why after knight to g4, you see you cannot take the pawn on d4. Dirty trap here by Leela. Of course, Stockfish, as I said, is not falling for this. Plays knight to f6. We have knight to e5. Now d takes c4 by Stockfish. But let's see again. Can you maybe take now the pawn on d4? Again, it's not working because now after queen to d6, you could maybe try rook from a to d8, but actually the queen would sneak in here on the 7th rank, and again, it gets very dangerous. Even if you try, I don't know, rook from e to d8, maybe to attack the queen, then the queen is coming here. You're trying to cover. Now we take the pawn. So as I said, again, the position is collapsing. If you take this pawn, then we have this one. So again, too much pressure here against black's position. This pawn is weak, so I think you could resign after a couple more moves. I'm telling you this because in any of these positions, it's almost impossible here to take the pawn on d4, which is hanging now for the next couple of moves, but Stockfish simply cannot take it. So we have now d takes c4. We have now bishop to c4. Again, let's see, queen to d4 is not working because of this idea. Knight to f7, you play king to f7, then you lose this one. Bishop takes e6. You try to get the king back. We play b3. Now with queen to b3, again, a messed up position, I think, with this beautiful queen and bishop battery. Again, black is facing several tactical problems. So again, I'm pointing out this pawn on d4 cannot be taken, but I'm showing you because maybe you're thinking, okay, now the position has changed. Now maybe black can do something around the square d4, but you see, it's never really a possibility. So we have bishop to g8, we have bishop to d3 by Leela, queen to d8, and now bishop to c2. Again, Stockfish gets challenged. Again, Stockfish is offered this pawn on on d4, but again you cannot take it because now it gets even more dangerous. Rook to d1, you have to step back, and now we get the queen here. If you try to compete, maybe here on this diagonal, there is even this possibility. Look at this crazy stuff. You can even sack the queen, for instance. In some lines you could get even checkmated by the beautiful queen, pardon me, bishop, rook and knight activity. Even if you escape here to g8, then again bishop to h7, knight to g6 leads into a spectacular checkmate pattern. So even in this position, you see queen to d4 cannot be played because of this battery of queen to d3, and then, as we said, rook to d1 first occupying, and then there's nothing that can be done. Although you can play bishop to h7, but the position is lost simply here for black. Very wild stuff. So after bishop to c2, rook to e7, now finally queen to c3, rook to a5, b3, a takes b3, bishop to b3, and now knight to d5, and of course bishop to d5. Stockfish is keeping simply again this bad bishop that's simply paralyzed by its own pawn. Here in this position after rook to d5, the knight is much better than this bishop on g8, and especially because of the fact that you cannot kick away this knight from the square e5. You don't have anymore your pawn on the d file. You don't have anymore the pawn on the f file that could maybe kick away the knight from this active square. So we have now knight to d3. Again, Leela C0 is offering the crazy d4 pawn, but even if you take it now, a rook to d4, then you get pinned here. You can maybe try to get this other rook into the defense, but now with knight to e5, whatever you do, if you try here rook to d6, then rook takes d4, rook to d4, rook to b1, very dangerous. You're trying, I don't know, king to f6, then knight to g4, you're trying to step back, rook to b7. So again, simply a messed up position. So again, you cannot take the pawn on d4 here because of the potential pin by the rook. So that's why after knight to d3, Stockfish played queen to d6, knight to c5 by Leela. We have now king to g6, knight to e4, queen to d8, and now a4, queen to a5, queen to c2, again threatening some dangerous check against the king. We have king to g7, knight to c3, again offering the d4 pawn. If you play now rook to d4, then rook to e5, you have to step back, and now rook to g5, for instance, is again winning here the game for white. Not only that you have problems somewhere here, you have also to worry something about your backward pawn on g5. So after knight to c3, rook to f5, played by Stockfish, we have queen to b2, again placing the queen where already the king is. If something clears now again on this diagonal, again the king could be in danger. King to g6, knight to e4, again a new beautiful square for the knight, queen takes e4, and now knight to d6, attacking the rook. Now we have a new attack against the rook, and now after the check we have now the fork against the queen and the rook, and here white is winning simply the exchange. But we have to say it, if this position would have been played now by two humans, I think many players with the white pieces would not win this game. I'm not saying many players would lose the game with white here, but you see how dirty now the Stockfish engine is. Stockfish gave up now the exchange, but wants to create now a new attack here on this side of the board. So it's really a crazy position where Stockfish has the bishop and 3 pawns for the rook, which is, I think, a decent compensation for the lost rook. But now, first of all, Leela C0 has to also defend the position on this side of the board, so it becomes very crazy endgame. So we have now queen to b5, rook to e7, queen to a5, now rook to b1, hitting this pawn. We have now a new attack against the rook, of course the battery on the b file. Now we have b5, rook to b5, and now king to g6. Okay, at least in this scenario, Leela C0 won a pawn back. We have rook to c1, we have now g4. Look how tricky now the fish is. Stockfish is breaking and entering here, is trying to somehow get this pawn on g2 deflected from the second rank and deliver dangerous checks with the queen. So we have h takes g4, and now h3 by fish, simply getting beautiful activity. So if you play king to h3 here, this is not working because after bishop to f7, you could get even check checkmated here on the h file. So it's not working. So that's why h3. We have rook to b7. We have queen to e2. Look at this crazy attack here by Stockfish. We have rook to g1. Leela is forced now to defend his position with the rook. Queen to f2. The queen is sneaking in here on g3. Really crazy. Queen to c3. We have now e5. Rook to b2. Queen to g3. King to h1. And now queen to h4. We have now a new threat. The threat is obviously h takes g2. So that's why g takes h3 first play by Leela. We have now bishop to f7. If you play here queen to h3, then actually the queen gets trapped. That's now the problem. You don't have any more escape scores for the queen, so this is not working. So after g takes h3, bishop to f7, king to h2. Now Stockfish is building a beautiful battery on the h file, and now rook to b6 first to check, bishop to e6, and now queen to d3. First to check, of course. We have king to g7, and now new check. Bishop covers, and now finally queen to f1 covers the h3 square. So you see, although white is up the exchange, always white has to defend this position around the square h. We have queen to h7. Now beautiful move here by Leela, g5. The threat is of course the move g6, creating the fork, because you cannot take with the bishop because of the activity of the rook on of the 7th rank. Queen to g6. We have rook to g4, rook to e8, and now queen to b5. Good move here by Leela, threatening of course queen takes d5. You cannot take with the bishop again because of the rook activity on the 7th rank. So we have rook to c8. Now comes this idea, new check here by Stockfish. Leela of course covers. We have rook takes g2, king takes g2, and now queen to c2, new check, but never really perpetual, because here Leela c0 can cover. Queen to c4, new check, and now finally Leela can escape. New check by Stockfish, but now no good checks are possible. This is, in my opinion, now completely winning endgame here for white. Queen to c8, rook to d7, keeping the pressure, simply pushing the pawn further. Rook to e7, we have rook takes e5, so now the position is collapsing here for Stockfish. Queen to c7, Leela again improves the position of the rook. Queen to e5, g6, simply pushing the pawn further. New attack against the queen, simply advancing this pawn. You can, of course, deliver some checks, but again, we can just escape. Then again, no good checks are possible. So, okay, sorry, queen to g5 is not possible here because of the rook activity. So there's simply nothing that can be done. The king is perfectly fine here for white. So we have queen to e6, rook to g5, bishop to c6, queen to h2, queen to e7, queen to a5, simply getting the piece into the more actively into the game. Now there are several threats. If you lose, if you get the queen here somewhere else, then you could get attacked on the back rank. We have bishop to f3, now new check, king to g7, bishop to f7 forces a trade of queens, and now in this particular position Stockfish resign. Obviously there's nothing that can be done against this potential promotion. You have to give up now, maybe even the bishop for the pawn, and again it's a lost game here for black. Crazy game. Really, it had its ups and downs. It almost seemed to me that Stockfish could defend his position later when Stockfish got 3 points and the bishop for the rook, but you see Leela calculated everything in a good way. Really crazy, spectacular game from the Fisher random match of the TCEC season 26. So as I said, great performance by Leela. Leela destroyed Stockfish in a great match, in a big match. This is not a small sample of games they played. Sometimes we have seen that Leela could win some games, win some matches against Stockfish, but these matches were 10-12 games. This is, I think, a too small sample. Now we had a sample of 44 games, which proves actually that in this format Leela c0 was simply slightly better against the big fish, big Stockfish 16. So okay, if you want to see some other Fisher random chess games here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our playlist. And if you want to see more AI crazy spectacular tactical games, check out our commented chess games played by computers. Here's also the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.